Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark. And today we have a guest that's probably going to intrigue you, you people. Sure, I can talk today. You people that want to get on video. So before we get into that, I want to send you over to our YouTube channel. We have all the videos. So if you're someone who likes video more than you like listening to iTunes or iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to this at, you can go on over to Superbrand Publishing, subscribe, and you can see all the videos over there. Look through the show notes, get the links. Also, don't forget to go over to our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz at promoteprofitpublish.com. Find out if you're really ready to be able to publish your book. And I just said that wrong. It's promoteprofitpublishquiz.com. But, there's a lot to the publishing world, and a lot of you are not prepared for the marketing. You take it one step at a time in the present moment. And unfortunately, you have to think way ahead. What are you going to do with this book? How are you going to do it? Where are you going to go? So get over there and take that quiz. So today's guest is Sheryl Plouffe. I really have a hard time saying her name, so I'll have her say it again. Go ahead and say it, Sheryl. Plouffe. Isn't she? She says it nicely. Sheryl's a video strategist, former Canadian TV broadcaster, and the creator of Cash In On Camera. She's been seen by millions over the course of her 25-year career in news media and has produced thousands of videos and has broadcast experience over 20,000 hours on live television. She lives and works in Ontario, and she's joining us today from her summer house. So I feel really privileged. If you open that, can we see a lake back there?
You would see a lot of cedar trees. And then beyond that, you would see boats on the bay. Yes.
Okay. See, I'm jealous already. I'm wistful about going outside. So welcome, Sheryl.
Thanks for having me, Juliet. Excited to get into this topic around video. And it's not just video, it's visibility. And I love what you're doing with this show and just what you said a moment ago, which is go over to our YouTube channel. You're giving people an option on how they want to consume this content, which I'm a real big proponent of.
Well, thank you. I love the platform that we have with Podetize because it has written, the listening, and the visual. So I feel like it covers every aspect of how people consume their media. So thank you for that. I'll pass that on to Podetize. So how did you get from being a TV personality into what you're doing today?
I did TV for many, many years, and I saw that there was a parallel between what I did as a professional broadcaster to what entrepreneurs really need to do in their businesses today. And that is to become and essentially act as a mini media company of their own. So I really believe that businesses today need to be the broadcaster of their own enterprise, right? It's being out there and visible. And a lot of the things that we did as broadcasters can really relate to entrepreneurship today.
See, that is so great because I don't think people think big in that sense as far as I can be my own media company. And that's what's changed so much in today's world. How long ago did you leave that industry?
2017 was when I went full time on my own. But I had prior to that for many years was developing programs and coaching and really fine-tuning my own proof of concept, which admittedly, Juliet, was different before the pandemic than it is now, because the pandemic really helped me see things in a different way. But nonetheless, I was doing coaching programs while I was still broadcasting and commuting 2 hours a day, to and from work. And we had a young son at the time. He was young at the time, and it was very busy. So what I really did in 2017 was I decided to leave what was frankly a very good job, but it was in my heart to leave. I really felt like I was being called to take that experience and do something different with it.
Mm-hmm. And I think COVID changed this for a lot of people. Tremendous, there's so many jobs. I know you're up in Canada, but in the US that are open. And I think those are people who decided that there's a better way than that 2-hour commute every day. So
I love working from home. I have to admit, I absolutely love it. I would say the majority of my business now is virtual. Most of my speaking is virtual. Most of the products and services we provide are virtual. So I think that, especially for me, it's been a wonderful thing to be able to be at home and closer to my husband and closer to our son, and be able to be more readily available at home. And I think that's been a great thing.
Yeah, it is. And I think just the time management around it as well. You can choose when you want to work. You can choose when you don't. But ultimately, you also know that you're the rainmaker in the company. So you do have to work. It's not as simple as I don't want to work today.
Well, you know what? I think it's interesting because I still work a lot, no doubt. I do work. But it's about being in control of that work. Mm-hmm. It's really about being the person who makes the call as to whether or not you're going to do these hours, or this is what I want my schedule to look like, or I'm working these days and not these days, as opposed to being dictated what those hours are. That was the biggest difference for me. I'm probably working as much, maybe more, mm-hmm. than I was before. Entrepreneurship is not easy, but it's really about the control factor for me. That was the impetus to want to go out on my own.
Yeah, that was the same for me. And I went online in 2010, and a lot has changed since then, even since 2017 or, before that when you went on. So how did you make that transition? What are you bringing out there that people need to know in terms of being on video? You and I mentioned authenticity a minute ago, and how many people are really stiff.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about where I am today, as opposed to looking in the past. I'd rather kind of look at now and in the future. I really feel that it's all around visibility. It's about being out there, and it's being positioned as an authority at what it is that you do. And there's a difference between expertise and authority. Expertise is great. A lot of people who go into business or start businesses, as entrepreneurs or coaches, consultants, or professional services, they have a skill, they have professional experience, they have parlayed that into something, that a product or service that they're selling. And that's great. So you have a level of expertise. The difference being, though, Juliet, is that you can be an unknown expert, and that doesn't help you, right? So the visibility piece is really key. You have to be getting out there. And today we live in the attention economy. And so if you're not getting those eyeballs, you're not getting attention on you, you're just as good as being invisible. So I think that we have to look at that and say, content is really one of the key things, which is what you're doing. It's what I do. We create content so that we can have that door opening medium to be able to have relationships and conversations with people and grow our businesses. And then also, when you do that, you not only get visible, but if you're sharing your expertise and you're doing it in a way that's educating people and moving the needle for them, you become an authority at that thing. Now, business opportunities open up for you. You get speaking invitations. You get to be on stages. All kinds of opportunities open up for you. So it's that transition of going from unknown expert to well-known or in demand or recognized authority that we focus on.
So let's talk about content for a minute, because that's probably the biggest objection I get from my authors is I don't have time for content. And I think they're looking at, I have to sit down and write a blog. When you do video content, when you create it, it can be as short as you want or as long as you want. So can you talk about that a little bit?
I have a framework that I use called 4Ps. It's pretty original, isn't it? 4P framework, because each of the letters starts with P. It's really original. I don't really.
Who named your course? No, just kidding you.
I don't get it caught up in all of the marketing stuff. It's really it's 4Ps: plan, produce, publish, and promote. And in the planning phase is really key. Before you ever go live or record a video, you have to have looked at the planning phase. And that includes things like your messaging, and a lot of people think they have their messaging dialed in, but they don't. They think they know who the ideal person is they're trying to attract, but they don't. And so you really have to nail that down. You also have to look at your systems, your processes, production, team. Do you have one? Are you by yourself? Do you have a VA? Can they be trained? What kind of equipment do you have? You have to look at everything holistically before you start embarking on the rest of the process. But I think that if you can really dial that in and look at it in a 4-step process, and that you have to do it chronologically, that you're going to see better results that way. But I say chronologically because a lot of people will go out and just start doing phase 3 when they really ought to start with phase 1. Do it step by step. And it's not something that just develops in a day. It can take some time, but it's worth it. It's funny you mentioned ROI, Juliet, because I was just looking at a stat yesterday. In 2015, businesses said that 33% of businesses said they got a positive ROI from video. Okay, that was in 2015, which really wasn't that long ago. Mm-hmm. And this year in 2021, when we are recording this, it's 87%. Wow. 87% say they are getting a positive ROI from video. So it's really key to incorporate video, I believe, into businesses today, going forward in the next decade, or else you risk remaining invisible.
Right. So how do you feel? A lot of people are just jumping on Facebook Live or LinkedIn Live. Mm-hmm. So would your 4P process work for them too? Because I feel like a lot of times when I watch those, there isn't much planning that's gone in.
Right. Yes, I think live streaming is very powerful because what happens with live streaming when done correctly, and there are some things that you have to keep in mind with live streaming. But if you do live streaming correctly and you have planned it out and you know what the intent of the video is, what you're trying to accomplish, the beautiful thing about live streaming is that it circumvents the post-production. In other words, the more laborious side of it and more tedious, time-consuming part and technical part, which is editing. People don't necessarily, I don't think, really should be editing their own videos. Yeah. But, listen, with some exceptions, there are apps that you can have on your phone that allow you to quickly create a reel for Instagram or create the reel within the Instagram app, things like that. That's fine. But if you're going to be creating your content strategy around editing your own videos, I question that. I think that live streaming is a way to get the content created in a way that still you can still have production value. The tools that I love and use, you can add your graphics and lower thirds and little banners around it and all of that. So it's really come a long way, but I think live streaming is essentially a great entry into content creation and where I think people who are on a budget should start.
Mm-hmm. Could you explain the lower third quickly? Probably a lot of people don't know what that is.
It's like when you watch a news report and you see the name of the person slide, usually it slides in, it's animated and it comes on the screen. It'll have your name and title, and then it slides back out. That's a lower third.
Okay, thank you. So when people take your courses, because I want them to understand the value you bring, do you go over strategy and then go through those processes, or how do you work?
When I'm consulting, and it always starts at that level, it always starts with talking, because I may not be right for everyone. So it's better to start with a consultative call and be able to figure out, is what I do really what you need? Because sometimes we have conversations with people and I'm not what you need yet. Right. You need to have other things dialed in before you get to me. So it's important to start with conversation. But yes, that is what I do, is I will go through it step by step and say, let's start with the planning. Then we go into producing, publishing, and promoting.
Oh, that's fantastic. So for you out there who are thinking about your book, the way this is incorporated in is not only this becomes content for your book, but when we do releases, we do a lot of press releases, and video makes that press release convert much higher. So it's something you really, really have to think about. And so let's get back into authenticity, because I think video scares a lot of people because they think I have to be perfect like that newscaster I see every night. And I don't think that's true at all. I think the things that you goof up on and actually endear you to your audience a little bit.
Well, if we think back to even the time when I was a broadcaster, and it's funny, my husband's sitting just a stone's throw away here. He was also a broadcaster for many years. One of the things that the audience loved the most were bloopers.
Right.
Like blooper reels, right? And so why is that? Why did people love blooper reels? Why were there shows entirely dedicated to blooper reels? It's because we got to see that people are human, that people make mistakes, that it's not all polished and perfect. And so I think if we just look at that as an example, it's clear that today, even in the social media landscape that we live in, that people want a level of realness. They want authenticity. They're tired of the photoshopped perfection of the smoothest skin of all time. And, it's fake. And people are seeing right through that, and they're craving something different now. They're craving authenticity. That's why one of the things we love to do in some of the services that we provide, we'll do a thing where we interview a client for 60 minutes on Zoom, and then we create 3 months of video content from that 1 hour interview. But it's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to be authentic and conversational. I ask questions, they answer, and the result is that they speak in their own voice. And those type of videos do very, very well.
Add to that too, nobody thinks they look good on video. I watch my videos and I'm like, oh my God, I suck. But I have a client who is a photographer, and she says sometimes people won't even go get headshots until I've lost 20 pounds. Or,
that's common.
Can you take 20 pounds off of can you Photoshop out 20 pounds? Well, good luck with that. So what would you tell people in the video realm about that? Because I'm sure it's the same thing. People don't like how they look, and they're avoiding it.
When I used to walk through the newsroom, we had 11 different feeds across Canada that we would create content for. So when I walked through the newsroom and I was on a replay loop, I would look up at the monitors and there'd be 11 of me. 11 Sheryls walking across the screen and doing her thing. And I didn't love looking up and I look up and go, we all do that. We're all self-critical. Like we're all critical of ourselves, but you have to look at it as that's your job. And, it is your job. If you're going to, again, adhere to what I said at the beginning, which is become a mini media company, be the broadcaster of your enterprise, then that's part of the job. We used to have air checks where we get into a boardroom with the executives and the on-air hosts, and they would record a section of the programming, put it on the monitor ahead of us, and then we would dissect it and critique the whole thing step by step. Oh. Well, you don't have to go to that extreme, but it is, I think, important to look at that and say, well, you know what? It might be a good idea to look at your content, especially from an analytics perspective. How well is it doing the thing that you intended it for it to do, as opposed to being critical of yourself in the video. Oh, I don't like my nose. The roots of my hair are this and that. People don't really care about that. You do, because your vanity is speaking, but other people don't care. They want to know what's in it for them. And if you've been providing value and sharing insight and knowledge that's going to help them, they look past, your crooked nose or the roots in your hair. They really don't care about that. You do.
Right. So you have to get over that. Here's another thing I hear all the time. My first video sucked, but it's the most watched out there. Especially from podcasters, because people pick up an episode and then they go, oh, I really like that. And they go back to episode 1. So, what would you say about that? To be less critical of those early, because you're going to get better as you go along. You just don't pop up one day and you're, the best out there.
It's very rare that the very first video you ever do goes viral. And the truth is, we're not really gunning for virality. That's actually really not virality is not dictated by you. It's dictated by the market. Mm-hmm. So it's very rare to go viral. It has happened, but it's very rare. So typically when people go out and they start making videos or they're putting themselves out there, that first video, it will likely suck. And you have to be okay with that. You have to understand that this is a means to an end. It's like, I have to do this first video so that I can do the second one, which will get better. And the third will get better still. The first one is always the hardest. So virality is not the goal here. It's a great thing that can happen, but that's not something that you control. So I say, do it anyway. You have to be willing. It's really about willingness. Am I willing to put myself out there, even if I will, quote unquote, fail? But you're going to learn something from the failure anyway. So there's no downside to this.
Right. Let's go back to the viral, because I think a lot of people really want to go viral, but viral doesn't necessarily convert to sales. And I don't think people understand that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. I don't think it's great to get attention. You want to start, it's like funneling, right? So if we're using the marketing term about building a funnel, it starts at the top level of awareness, and then it starts to kind of funnel and narrow down to a point where you get a client. So it has to start at that level. And that's typically where that kind of virality piece happens. You get a lot of attention on a piece of content, which is great, but it's what are you doing digitally to draw those people into the next step, and onward. And that's why having, digital strategy is important. Earlier in this conversation, I said, sometimes I like to start with a conversation, because when I start with a conversation and I recognize that they don't have some fundamentals in place, then I say, you're not ready for me yet. You need to go back, and this is what you need. Sometimes it's a digital strategy. Sometimes it's a branding strategy. Sometimes it's messaging. These things need to be dialed in before you work with me.
Right.
So in my opinion, that's the better way to do it. So yes, it's about that awareness piece at the highest level. It's great. It's awesome. But if you don't have other things dialed in, it will not really result in any fruitful results for you.
Right. We get that with the books as well, that, I don't have a branding palette, or I don't, my message is the book. And a lot of times they don't even know what the next step is with the book. And, the book isn't the money. It's not the huge money maker people think it is. It's a loss leader most of the time for it.
That's right. And I think it's interesting, Juliet. I think that sometimes we should think about our content as the same thing. Yeah. It's a loss leader, right? I mean, it's not necessarily costing you, but maybe some apps or maybe a VA to do some work. I mean, there's cost involved for sure, especially if you outsource, which can really be a great benefit to a company too. But there are costs with anything. What you invest in it could definitely be a good thing. But yeah, I agree. I think videos is one of those things as well. You're getting that awareness, and then it's what are you doing with it from there?
Right. That's so true. I do not consider my content. I don't even look at the ROI on it. Because there are so many ways that I can use it after I have a conversation with someone. I can drop one of my podcasts in. So, you're right. It is the same as that book in that loss leader way. So where can we find you if we want to find out more about what you do and connect with you?
SherylPlouffe.com is the best place to go. And you will see buttons there to connect with me. You can apply to have a chat with me and start a conversation, and we can consult so that I can give you my best advice on where you're at and where you should go. It might be with me, it might not. There may be some other things that you need to dial in first, but I'm always happy and love to connect people. I think you do too, Juliet. I get that impression. But we like to connect people with others who can benefit them. And I mean, I think when you're a purpose-driven person and you really care about people's well-being in business and you want to see them grow, it's better to send people in a direction that's really going to help them ultimately. And I think that's the route that I choose.
Okay, great. You guys check out the show notes so you can spell Sheryl's name. It's Sheryl with an S, right? Yeah. And that Plouffe.
Yeah. And listen, I'm on social media at Sheryl Plouffe pretty much everywhere. I'm a DM away. I'm a private message away. I'm an email away, Sheryl@SherylPlouffe.com. It's so easy to just send me an email and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast with Juliet Clark, and I'd like to chat with you. Great. And then we can go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your information today.
Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.